My only wish is that he just ran that car off the road, pulled that guy out of the fucking car, and beat him to death.
Hey guys, Seth Fuller, your favorite attorney here. Recently, my worlds collided. See, I'm in the MMA community, the mixed martial arts community, cage fighting. I'm a ref, I'm a judge, and I've been training in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. I've just been in that community for over a decade. And also been a criminal defense attorney, dealing with juvenile law and even in the CPS docket for about the same amount of time. And recently, if you haven't heard, former UFC champion and former baddest man on the planet, Cain Velasquez, was arrested for attempted murder in California. Now, the details are pretty clear, but they're dividing people in America. And I hope I can shed light on maybe what had happened is not so unreasonable. Now, let's start with something we can all agree on. Pedophiles are the worst human beings on the planet and should not be allowed in our society. I think everyone can agree on that. I'm talking strictly about pedophiles. I could do an entire video about the difference between pedophiles and hebephiles and sex predators, and they're all bad, but pedophiles, people who are sexually attracted to children who haven't gone through puberty, are for sure the worst. They're the worst because they're like vampires. They're the closest thing we have to vampires. You see, if you get robbed walking along the street, just innocently mind your own business, and someone comes up and robs you at gunpoint, takes your wallet, takes your purse, there's 0% of people who are then going to decide, well, no, I'm going to go and rob people. However, the statistics show that up to 25% of pedophiles have been abused themselves as a child, and that's just self-reporting. In my experience, it's way more than that. So pedophilia is pretty much the only crime someone can commit that could create more victims. And again, you would think if someone's doing it to one person, they're doing it to multiple people, even if they aren't caught for those multiple people. And if those multiple people are doing it to multiple people, or even a portion, let's say one of those multiple people is doing it to one, then it just propagates, and quickly, depending on how prolific they are, it can just get out of control. And so pedophilia and child sex abuse wreaks havoc on our society, and it has to stop. Why am I saying this when in regards to Cain Velasquez and a shooting? Well, what we do know is Cain was chasing and shooting at Harry Velasquez, who was accused and arrested for molesting a relative of Cain Velasquez, a young child relative. Now, it's been speculated that relative was Cain's 4-year-old son, but that's speculation so far. But regardless, it was one of Cain's family members was molested by this Harry Velasquez. He was accused of being molested, and that's important, and it'll come in later. But Harry Velasquez was arrested for molesting this young child. He was released several days later on what's called a PR bond, a personal recognizance bond. And Cain heard about it, chased him down, shot at him. And unfortunately, or fortunately if you're Harry, but unfortunately, Cain missed and hit Mr. Velasquez's stepfather. So now Cain Velasquez gets arrested for the attempted murder of Harry Velasquez, the man he shot twice. Now, Harry survived, so it's only attempted murder. But Cain is arrested. Harry Velasquez is free. And the MMA community is in an uproar. Now, almost universally, Cain Velasquez is well respected, and he had the support of the entire MMA community. They started a hashtag Free Cain movement, and pretty much everybody is supporting him. Ronda Rousey has supported him. A MMA fighter by the name of Derek Brunson raised $10,000 for his legal funds. Joe Rogan came out and said,
My only wish is that he just ran that car off the road, pulled that guy out of the fucking car, and beat him to death.
Colby Covington, after his headlining pay-per-view fight, came on to his interview and said,
Free Cain, man. A lot of people, what he did, a lot of people, would wouldn't have done the same thing, but I respect the shit out of him. I mean, having your kid be molested, I mean, we talk about that all the time. Like, we would do that, but he was in that situation. He actually did it. So, free Cain Velasquez, much respect and love, and I hope you get out soon.
And just pretty much tens of thousands of tweets in support of free Cain. And so if you look at it on the surface, it is absolutely bananas how we got here. But hopefully I can use a little of my legal expertise and experience to clarify why we got here and maybe even talk about a little bit of a solution. So since we've already discussed my feelings about pedophiles and child molesters, let me start with Mr. Gualarte. So how did he get free? How is he a free man being accused of molesting a kid, according to some reports, over 100 times? And again, he was accused of touching. So how is he free when he has been accused of touching a kid in a sexual manner, what's called lewd and lascivious behavior with a child under 14? It's in the California Penal Code. And it says that if you touch a kid, touch a child, in an effort to gratify yourself sexually, that you're guilty of this crime. So he was arrested for it. It was reported. He was arrested. How does he get out? Not only get out, but get out on no bond, a PR bond. Well, here's how. So you have a constitutional right, and there's two important constitutional rights out here. More than that, but two that specifically we need to talk about. Number one is you are innocent until proven guilty in a court of law, according to the eyes of the law. So that means that this guy could be wrongfully accused. And before you at me, oh my God, Seth, no kid ever lies. What would a 4-year-old make this up? Why would a child make it up? What is, you think it's some sort of conspiracy? No. But I will say that if you recall, if you were around during the 80s and 90s, there was a daycare panic. It was part of the satanic panic, and basically all these daycares were accused of crazy behavior, including molesting children, but part of it was like flying children to other locations for satanic rituals. And basically across the nation there's like more than 30 cases of these daycare workers being accused of heinous crimes that they just, it turns out, did not commit, and there was no good evidence to commit it. Turns out that the police were just bad at interviewing children and introduced a lot of ideas into these children's heads. And so while that was corrected, and while most of those cases were dismissed, it was still, it was an issue. So we just have to, things happen and innocent people are accused. We know that. There's nobody arguing that there's no innocent people accused of crimes, including touching children. So this guy is innocent in the eyes of the law. But in general, he also has a right to a speedy trial. And so everyone understands that because a lot of the people who are accused of these things are going to be guilty, we have to hold them in jail a little till they get their trial. And nobody has a problem with that. The problem is you have a right to a speedy trial. Well, what's a speedy trial? Well, a speedy trial in the United States is somewhere around, if you're spend longer than 8 months to a year in jail while trying to get a trial, while actively trying to get a trial, the court can dismiss your case even if you're convicted. So after you're convicted, they can find that your speedy trial rights were violated, and they can reverse your conviction, and you could be set free even though you were actually found by a jury to be guilty. So that's crazy. We don't want that happening. So what's the issue? Well, we just get him a trial soon enough. We have the speedy trial, right? So Harry Goularte was arrested. Why wasn't he given a speedy trial? Well, that's all said and good. And the answer is because our court systems are flawed. We have a judicial system that runs slow, that isn't efficient, probably because it's run by the government. And so we end up with literally, in some cases, hundreds of cases queued for trial. And a big part of those are people who are in jail waiting because they can't afford bond. All right? So what we get in this situation is we have 20 guys sitting in jail waiting for their trial. We can't get enough jurors. We can't get the trials going fast enough. We can't, there's one judge, so that judge has to try, even if they try a case a week, if you have 50 guys waiting, that would take a year, and he wouldn't even be able to do any of his other dockets, any of his stuff at courts. And this is real examples around the world, especially in crowded cities, and especially once COVID came in. Oh man, once COVID came in and we weren't having any jury trials for years, the judges were like, what do we do? Because not only is the normal backup of, let's say, like 30 cases waiting for trial of people in jail in a large district court in California, probably not unheard of, but now you're waiting in a line that's not moving. You're stuck in traffic that's not going anywhere. It's different than slow moving. Now you have those are stacking up. Now it's 50 people. Now it's 100 people. And now you've got to worry about all those people. Most of them are going to be found guilty statistically being released. That's a problem, right? We can all agree that's a problem. So what do? Well, they try to, all bail is supposed to do is make sure you show back up to court and protect the community. So what they do is, like, say, put people on house arrest where they have to wear ankle monitor. That's where Mr. Gallardo was going when Cain chased him down, allegedly. So I just say that to say there is some reason for letting this guy go. And that's because if they don't, and this guy waits longer than a year for a trial, then, and they won't know how much time is actually triggers it, but he could be found guilty, and then the appeals court can reverse that because they find that you have violated his right to a speedy trial, which is an essential right. So the courts are worried about that, and it's somewhat reasonable that they say in these cases where the guys are probably looking at probation, which unfortunately, again, I'm not going to go into whether touching a kid should be the same as having sex with a kid. I think you should get the same punishment of life in prison. But what I'm saying is he was innocent until found guilty. So this guy, the judges are just like, he's going to make it back to trial. So they put an ankle monitor him and expect him to come back. I promise you the judge now regrets that. The DA asked against it. They always are against that sort of thing. But now the judge is in the news for having given this guy a bail. And now Cain forced the issue because Cain Velasquez goes down to, finds this guy, chases him down, shooting at him in public, and shoots the wrong guy. So now Cain is arrested. Well, what about Cain? Why should he be arrested? He was doing something we'd all do. I'm not saying I'm any more reasonable than Cain. I don't know what I do. I'd like to think that I am reasonable enough to let the courts do their thing. And then if I felt that that was unjust, I would take it in my own hands. But I don't know. I could see myself trying to chase a guy down and kill somebody. However, we have to face, this is the fact that is indisputed. The stepfather was not charged. We don't know that he was doing anything illegal, had done anything wrong, had harmed any children, had harmed any people. You can say what you want about him supporting someone who's accused of those things. Again, maybe he doesn't believe that his stepson did that. Or whatever the case may be, he wasn't charged with a crime and he ended up getting shot. More importantly, once you shoot at someone and miss your target, everything else is just a roll of the dice. Cain could have hit an innocent bystander. That could have been a child. Could have hit a police officer who was responding. If he didn't know that if he wasn't sure, if he didn't make sure that his bullet hit the intended target, that anything else was a risk to the public. And luckily, it only struck a family member of this guy and he lived, and it didn't kill somebody, and he's facing murder charges. So that being said, let's not pretend that what Cain did was 100% okay. Even if we give him the vigilantism of a angered father or angered relative who's trying to get vengeance and sees red, we have to all admit that what he did was reckless, and that we can't have people going around shooting randomly and not having the bullets hit the intended target. Once you get there, okay, Cain's arrested. Now I've given you a reason for this guy to maybe be freed and for Cain to be arrested. Well, the crazy part is Cain's bond was withheld. They gave him no bond. So why is that? Well, this judge now knows that this is in the spotlight. So whatever she did before, he or she did before, and maybe regrets or doesn't regret in regard to this child molester, accused child molester, now they have Cain Velasquez in their court. and they can't revoke the bond of the accused child molester just because he got shot at. So the judge is painted into a corner, because as long as that's guy is free, how can you ensure? Here's what I say: imagine the judge gives Cain bail, which he's rich, so he can afford almost any bail. The judge gives Cain bail, and he goes out and kills this guy. Well, that would be a problem. It's the same problem if he had killed this. One thing people aren't thinking about. Let's say Cain was successful and had killed the person he thought was molested his child. Well, at that point, there's no criminal trial, which means that he's innocent in the eyes of the law, which means this family could sue Cain. Cain would be facing up to a life sentence for murder. And then Cain's family could lose all of their money, all for a stupid, non-thinking decision on Cain's part. That could happen. As opposed to the guy being convicted, put on probation. Then if Cain kills him, he's still facing the same thing, but really the family can't sue, saying, he shouldn't have killed this guy. I think that they would lose that lawsuit for sure. But if the guy is innocent in the eyes of the law, it just gets crazy. And this is why we don't allow vigilantism. So now the judge is faced with, how do I make sure that Cain doesn't go kill this guy? Obviously, Cain risked everything to try to kill this guy. He wasn't successful. What if Cain, again, misses again, does it worse? I mean, there's just really no good result. The judge would be famous, would be infamous if something bad happens once you release Cain. So now they have to hold Cain for how long? I don't know. Again, could be 8 months, could be a year. It's crazy to think about that he is locked up, this other guy is free, and here's the craziest part. Cain could be facing more time in jail for this than the guy did for molesting a child. So what's crazy, that's just a crazy thing to think about, that this is what happens when you make deadly mistakes, when you go around shooting people in public. No matter what your reasoning, you create an impossible situation. Now, we talked about how could this be addressed. It's very simple. We have to address the speedy trial issue in the legal system. How do we do that? Well, we have to hold these courts accountable somehow for their docket and for how far they are behind with trials. Okay, it's one thing if the defendants in jail are postponing their trials, but it's another if it's circumstance and bad management that causes the backup. In my case, I have a kid. He spent from when he was 15 to now when he's about to be 17 in jail, in lockup, in detention. And we have been asking for a trial since day one. So this kid has spent closing in on 2 years of his young life waiting for a trial so he can have his day in court. And I had a speedy trial motion that was not granted. And I have to wait until after the trial to even see if the court will overturn a conviction if he has it. But right now he has no other way to get out of jail except to post a $500,000 bail, which he doesn't even close to have, or he's just got to sit tight and the trial keeps getting postponed. So we have to hold these courts accountable, and we have to do something about these dockets. And again, I think there are several ways we can do that, but that's not to be discussed here. What we have to know is, until we hold these courts accountable, till we get that docket down to a reasonable time, where if I'm an innocent person, I'm not going to spend over a year, over 2 years, over 3 years, over 6 years in jail just waiting for my day in trial, then until we get that taken care of, it's going to be a problem. So if you're asking how it happened, that's how it happened. The system is broken, but it's not broken in letting someone accused of child molesting out of jail. The system is broken in that they can't get that person a trial fast enough so that innocent people aren't languishing in jail. I hope this explains something. I know in the comments, put how I'm an apologist for pedophiles or whatever you want. Negative, positive, I appreciate you listening. I'm sorry that it was so long, but I think these things are worth explaining. Most people don't care and they turn it off, so if you made it to the end, congratulations. Maybe you're a little more well informed. I hope that works out for you on Facebook. In any event, hit the like, subscribe, whatever you need to do, support us, and I appreciate it. Have a good one.